I want to talk about everyone's favorite topic on this channel, which is link building. More specifically, 2026 link building and what I would do to actually get started with link building this year. Appreciate we're already a little bit into it, but I think with all the talk around the AI SEO side of things, that a lot of the foundational elements just don't change. So here's how I would approach it with a new site. And to be fair, if you've already got link building strategies in place, the type of things that it's worth doubling down on, the things that don't really change. It seems like we're in such a big period of change at the minute. These are the type of things that just stay absolutely solid. So first one that I think is not often talked about that much really is just building a solid link foundation. So that could be if you're doing a link intersect and you can just see all the different directories and citations that your competitors are signed up to. There's always new ones to be added. What I would say on that side of things for directories and citations is just look at those that actually have traffic. There's so many out there that you can sign up to, so like citation services and things like that, where you get hundreds and hundreds of citations, but none of them actually bring traffic. So have a look for ones and you can filter in the likes of Ahrefs of a link intersect and start to pull out ones that actually bring traffic for your competitors, or ones that are contextual to your niche and that are actually going to at least get picked up by these tools on your side, and obviously for search engines as well. But another thing that I like to do is just have a look at branded searches. So for example, if we just look at Ahrefs, and you can just see, you've got like G2 here, Chrome Web Store, they've got YouTube profiles, social profiles getting cited. What else we've got? Like different, like LinkedIn, different review platforms, again, more coverage on YouTube. So just really thinking, as ridiculous as it sounds, just like thinking as a real brand. I think there's so many sites that jump straight into guest posts or digital PR and things like that, where they're not building that trust foundation. So, and I suppose as well that goes outside of just building links into a site. It's all the typical social profiles and also the type of trust and authority that you're building on those profiles. So when people are searching for your brand name, they're getting knowledge about your brand and sort of reinforcement of your brand, sort of authority and quality from all these different signals. So there obviously is like the link building element to that, but you've got to think about broader brand building in 2026 and the role of organic sort of visibility in that. We already know the likes of YouTube and Reddit are really important from an LLM side. So, having that in your strategy, okay, YouTube as a backlink approach probably isn't the best thing to just think that, right, I'm just going to build all my links by just adding them to YouTube videos. Obviously not a good idea. But, there's obviously a really solid part of that comes to broader organic brand visibility. And obviously it always ties back to the brand and the website. So that's just something to really think about before you dive into more specific strategies, that just have a really sort of hard think about it. Do you have a solid foundation set up? Certainly, even for smaller businesses, are you covering relevant citations and directories, like I say, doing those link intersects and finding sites that genuinely get traffic? But also, are you showing real brand signals, or are you just focusing on a list of links that someone sent you? I'll work through those and then just go on to the next thing. I think it's much more about overall brand visibility and the role that links have to play in that ultimately. So the next one is working with publishers and more traditional guest posting. So let's just talk about traditional guest posting now, actually. That's something that where you're looking to build more of a long-term partnership. It might be with someone in your direct niche, or maybe a niche adjacent to you. I won't name the site, but I had a really good opportunity from a guest posting side with two agencies actually. And none of them were advertising for guest posts. I just saw that they were talking about certain link building topics, and I just reached out to them as someone that they can see is like actively talking about these things. It wasn't a pitch that was like, oh, here's X amount of money, like give me a link. It was much more about, I noticed the level of quality that you're writing about, and I love what you're writing about. I'd love to be part of that. And you start to really foster that relationship long term. So guest posting from that perspective, I think still works really well. It's much more relationship based in how you approach that than it is transactional. Whereas say, publisher outreach, blogger outreach can be much more, one link and done. You might have ongoing relationships with publishers, but generally it's much more of a I will send you this content. If there's a publishing fee, let's discuss it, or a product gifting, or however you want to approach it. But that tends to be a bit more of a like a one and done type thing. But one of the best ways that I like to approach, I mean, guest posting itself is quite self-explanatory. If you're looking for someone in your niche, you could just look for other bloggers that are already writing about similar things to you, and start to build that relationship. But with publishers, especially if you're working with clients and clients in different niches, I just always have a sit down and think, okay, what would someone in this niche be writing about? And how can I find publishers that are actually getting traffic for the things they're writing about? So let's say I was working with, I don't know, a nursery, or a business that was targeting, say, toddlers and that type of thing. Literally looking at something like Peppa Pig World Review, because those are all the types of like family bloggers that are going to be writing those types of things. And then you can start to build up a list of ones where you're not sort of starting from the root domain, you're starting from what you can already see they're doing and what's already working well. So that's a really nice way of doing it, of like almost putting yourself in the shoes of how they would be doing their research, rather than maybe going through a list and doing it the other way, where you can start to come across blog networks and all these different things where they might look like sort of, say, legitimate bloggers in your niche, but then when you dig a little bit deeper, they're not actually either getting much traffic, or they're linking heavily to grey niches, and then actually it's just a link farm that you want to ignore. So that's a really nice way of doing it. And yeah, it can be something that works well as part of a long-term link building strategy. I think it's like any link building strategy, you just need to vary it as much as possible. So from a blogger outreach side, combining, if you're an e-commerce store, combining gifting with link inserts, with links into your articles to individual product pages, even if it's like a gifting review, or focusing more heavily on sort of branded anchors and links into the homepage to start to build a bit of that brand volume. But obviously you've got the PR side if you're doing the gifting, so it's whatever makes the most sense in terms of what is as natural as possible, again, rather than just going in for trying to get X amount of links because that's what your competition have got. The amount of times where I get link orders through Complete White Label where I just have to decline it and then reach back out to the side to say, we're not going to fulfill an order with 15 of the same sort of anchor text going to a product page or a category page. It makes much more sense to vary these things and focus on, again, I keep going back to like organic brand equity, organic brand trust. This is one way to do it, but it shouldn't be the only way ultimately. So that's why I want to cover a couple of different ways we can start to get that varied link profile coming through. You're not just relying on one approach. So my favorites tend to be a blend of expert commentary, general digital PR campaigns, and data campaigns. So from an expert commentary side, if you've seen my videos before, I've spoke about this a lot, but this is something that most site owners can do really. So you can literally just search for something like travel expert warns, fashion expert warns, fashion expert reveals, whatever it is in your niche that makes sense. And you can start to see the type of things that journalists are favouring. That could be how certain stories are repeating at certain times of the year, or how even like different layouts of expert commentary campaigns are favoured. So for example, in the cleaning niche, it could be, I always see things like cleaning expert warns or cleaning expert reveals 11p hack. So it's always like those types of things that journalists tend to go for, and that will obviously vary from niche to niche. But that's quite an interesting one, because instead of waiting for a request to come to you, you can put a release together and send that out to a journalist and try to get on top of whether it's like reactive to a news story or something that is coming up that is contextual to your website or to your client. So for example, like last year I had orders from a private registration client, so selling like private regs, and Easter was coming up, so we did a thing on like expert gives advice on how to make the most out of your Easter holidays, or how to plan your trips, how to make sure your car is safe for a longer trip, and that got picked up all over the place. So sometimes it can be quite top level stuff, things that seem quite top level for someone who's in the niche, but it is actually very helpful for people, just the general public who want to know that. And again, it can vary from niche to niche, but that can tend to be the type of things that the journalists are going for, not, 3,000 words of really detailed content and guides that no one's going to read ultimately. But you can also go down hashtag journal request route. So this is still really active over on X. There's always things that are coming in through there. You can use Pressloft for something similar. So they've got an expert comment section, and then also quoted as well. So if you want to look, I just put SEO in there, for example. Really, I would say I think my two favorites are probably Mention Match and Quoted. So Mention Match used to be Help a B2B Writer. They'll just send you emails with things that are relevant to you. Quoted, you have to pay for it, but I would say this is the best because it's all within a dashboard. You set up different hashtags. So if you've got multiple clients, or you're doing it on behalf of multiple businesses that you own, you'll get sent hashtags that relate to something. So for example, on mine, I've got hashtag SEO, hashtag digital marketing. They'll have different ones for different clients. The great thing with this as well is you get a sense of what the journalists and publishers are talking about. So you can combine this with more of this active approach as well. So you're not just waiting on requests to come to you. You can absolutely jump on them when they do. But it's a good way of being able to get a sense of what's sort of coming up, what's in the media at the minute that's specific to your niche. There's a really nice way of combining the two with sort of fresh data. Then the next one is the data tables. This is so good. It's a little bit more difficult, I would say, than like expert commentary or more standard press releases, because I guess there's more time to get the data. There's more riding on it. I tend to work with data scrapers, so you can find like developers and people who are offering these types of services on like Upwork and places like that. And they can just go and get that data and help you to put tables together. You can absolutely do it yourself as well, or use different plugins and tools to try and get that data. But just having someone who does that like day in, day out just makes the process so much more efficient. So for example, if you were in travel and you wanted to target Manchester, you could do something like Manchester name travel. Loads of different ways to do it, but that's just an example. UK's best nightlife city, UK's worst city, the worst airport in the UK is XYZ because of this. So this is one that I've done recently that I've been working on. So the best UK cities for freelancers. It's a very similar sort of thing. And you can look at, various different data points. Have I got here like Wi-Fi speeds, number of co-working spaces per 100,000 residents, networking events, the number of self-employed people, the cost of living, and you can start to put this ranking together. What's really interesting with that is that when I've done it in the past especially, you would sort of expect the top 3 cities maybe to be the ones that are linking out. But actually I've found like it tends to be some of the lower ones. So it might be like so-and-so voted the worst for XYZ, or I think one of them was like, I think it was Essex was voted like the 7th in one of the tables. Don't know whether that was just a slow news day, but it's quite interesting because you would just assume that it would only be the top few. So the great thing about these is like if you can really validate that idea and it makes sense for you to go ahead with, you can always publish it on your own site, but then you can also outreach to say the journalists in the top 10 and the bottom 10, and you can also do a general national press release as well. So that's like 21 opportunities there, with the same piece of data where you're just tweaking the press release each time. Obviously not having to really tweak it much once you've made a national version. So yeah, for those, if you've got like development contacts, you've got devs on your team, or you've got a bit of budget to try something outside of typical, let's say like more typical press releases or expert commentary style approaches, these data tables, league tables, these are always really good ones to try as well. And then the final one, and I think especially if you've got a new site, like I say, you're getting started with link building in 2026, this ties into the content strategy side of things as well. So the type of content that can still drive relevant audiences to you, but the type of things that journalists and publishers look for that can attract links passively. So we're seeing it a lot at the minute with like calculators and tools that obviously you can help use AI to help you build those. They work really well. But also like statistics pages and data pages that live on your site. So this is a really good example of one that I saw recently. So if we wanted to do like an SEO statistics page, we know that there's going to be journalists and publishers out there who are going to cite that. The great thing about these is that it doesn't have to be your data. So you can see here, with WordStream, they're just externally linking to all the different sources where they found each of those stats. So a journalist or a publisher who's landing on this can validate, right, that they're obviously quoting data that is true. Ultimately, they're not just used AI to try and build these pages. And you can see like 205 referring domains coming into that. Okay, not all of them are going to be, really high quality, but it's really interesting how you can start to build out those sort of authority hubs within your site. And then, especially for newer sites, you're starting to then get traffic in, and ultimately they're still relevant audiences that are coming to the site. My favorite thing about these, though, is that you can then build those internal hubs of authority, and then how you approach internal linking back to commercial pages. It's a much safer way of sort of building that authority to I guess, like, yeah, commercial or money pages without having to just file links to them directly. So it just has a bit more of that long-term element to it, because you've got the content side, you've got the relevance for the content that you're producing, and then you have the internal link opportunities and the opportunity to spread that authority ultimately across the site without having to worry about external links just trying to prop up pages that otherwise might look a bit peculiar that they've got any external links in the first place. And yeah, so I also just recently updated this link building guide. So it's updated at the start of April for 2026. So there's loads of other link building approaches in there with different videos, different examples. But yeah, I just wanted to show the type of things where if someone said, what would I be focusing on in 2026 from a starter perspective? Those approaches are what would be it ultimately. But there are loads of different other strategies that you can take and you can go with. Those are just some of my favorites at the minute. But yeah, I've got things here like infographic outreach, podcasts, and yeah, more approaches to citations and directories. So check out that guide as well. I hope that this was helpful, and especially if you're just getting started on the link building side, that it gives you a bit of a pointer on what's possible and how a lot of the sort of foundational elements of link building don't really change. Any questions, drop me a comment and I'll see you in the next video.